Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. You've been searching in the dark, your sweat soaking through the floor. And buried in your bones, there's an ache that you can't ignore. Taking your breath, stealing your mind, and all that was real is left behind. Don't fight it, it's coming for you, running at you. It's only this moment, don't care what comes after. Your fever dream, can't you see, getting closer. Just surrender, cause you feel the feeling taking over. It's fire, it's freedom, it's flooding open. It's the preacher and the pulpit and your blind devotion. There's something breaking at the brink of every wall that's holding all that you know. So tell me, do you wanna go where it's covered in all the colored lights, where the runaways are running the night? Impossible comes true, it's taking over you. This is the greatest show. We light it up, we won't come down, and the sun can't stop us now. Watching it come true, it's taking over you. This is the greatest show. Colossal we come, these renegades in the ring, where the lost get found and we crown them the circus kings. Don't fight it, it's coming for you, running at you. It's only this moment, don't care what comes after. It's burning, outshining anything that you know. Just surrender, cause you're coming and you wanna go where it's covered in all the colored lights, where the runaways are running the night. Impossible comes true, intoxicating you. This is the greatest show. We light it up, we won't come down, and the sun can't stop us now. Watching it come true, it's taking over you. This is the greatest show. Where it's covered in all the colored lights, where the runaways are running the night. Impossible comes true, it's taking over you. This is the greatest show. We light it up, we won't come down, and the walls can't stop us now. Watching it come true, it's taking over you. This is the greatest show. This is the greatest show.
All right, what's going on, everybody? You know who it is. So this is live right now, and obviously my shows are barely ever live, so it won't continue to be live, but I'm always here in case anybody watches, listens. Sorry, looking at my levels. Anybody watches or listens or whatever the case is, I can interact with them, which has only happened maybe like 3 times, but nonetheless, I get more hits when it's in the archive so people can watch it. Sorry, not the point. Things I want to get to is, so last night I made a video. Jordan Peterson has released 3 videos since his whole addiction thing has happened, and I couldn't be happier that he is back. And fucking who the fuck would I be to judge a man who had an addiction problem? I'd be a damn hypocrite, and I think everybody out there is addicted to something in some way, and if you judge anybody, you're just an idiot. But something kind of funny happened. So I make this video 2 hours long on YouTube. So it probably won't get many views anyways. Thank God for that. No, that's not true. I want people to look at my stuff. But as I'm trying to put it on last night, and I got a fast connection. Like I said, a $300 fucking Wi-Fi router in my house with 2 internet connections. One that me and my wife use. That's the 5G one, I guess. And 5G, I know. But it's a hell of a lot faster for me to do this shit. And then there's one that's where the rest of the systems or rest of the electronics in the house go on. So anyways, I'm trying to upload this video after I create it, and it's telling me it's going to take 50 hours. And then it goes down to about 4, 6, keeps bouncing around. I'm like, what the fuck? This has never happened. So anyways, I'm uploading it. So then I grabbed my wife's phone and I saw Thunder Wizard uploaded a new video. And it's the part 2 of how I think he titled this one different, but it's him with 2 other guys from the Wizard Factory, which, you know, credit where credit's due. I think the guys from the Wizard Factory that interviewed Thunder Wizard are very smart, intelligent. I don't know if they're considered heathens or shaman, whatever they are, pagans, whatever it is. I think they're definitely worth looking into, because they definitely have some good ideas. But anyway, so I'm trying to upload this episode on how to use the Bible to learn witchcraft, spirituality, deities, history, how to become a good person, how to get through dark night of the souls. Different things like that is what the content I created was. And then I got these 3 guys who are shitting all over Christianity. This video just went live last night, probably, a couple hours before I was trying to upload my video about basically the opposite. And so with the amount of time it was going to take to upload, plus the message that they were saying, I ended up not uploading it. And then this morning, after listening to their stuff, and I really want to state this point, that I agree with them when they're talking about Christianity and how it was used to program people, how to keep people in a victim mentality, how to keep people not finding their inner strength and spirituality, how to shun the material, and it was used, and there was a lot of bloodshed created out of it, and it was just a way to control people. I agree with all that 100 absolute fucking %. Hence, the title of this is different from the title of the video on YouTube, and it's changing the meaning and the programming of the Bible, because all those things that they said are true. There's been a lot of death because of Christianity. There's been a lot of people that have this sense of they need to become follow these traditions, yet their own ancestral tradition they have no idea of, because it's been 2,000 years shunned away from them, that they can't even come in contact with anymore, because it's of the devil and all that other hypocrisy bullshit. So that was very hard and struggling for me last night. But then I go to sleep at night, and then I wake up with this notion of, well, what they said is true. However, because right now we have the system, and whether it's right or wrong, it's a system. So those 3 gentlemen that are talking about the Bible and how it was always been used to control people, which I agree with. The people who made the Bible may not have necessarily made it in this purpose, and maybe they did. I can't say that without a shadow of a doubt. There's a lot of evidence proving that it might have been just created to simply control people from the get-go. However, I do think if you are of a depolarized state and you look at it from an objective perspective, there's a vast amount of things that it can teach you. Plus, if you already have the programming that the Bible is the Word of God, and you believe in a God that can bring you manifestation, then instead of removing that programming completely, because sometimes it's hard to do that, whatever other programming that was built up on the same foundation of that programming, when that breaks, it's also going to break that away from you. And this is something Frederick Xavier teaches and does a hell of a job teaching. But nonetheless, and like I say in this video, Frederick's got a paid programming on how to use the Old Testament, the Psalms, King Solomon's part of the Old Testament, to manifest, to do manifestation and help transform yourself. So what I am right now stating, and not necessarily what my video is, although I think that's what Jordan Peterson does try to do, he's trying to get people to look at the Bible in a better way than what the priest, the establishment, what everybody's been telling everybody, that this is the Word of God, it's truthful, it's actual fact, all that bullshit. I think he's trying to break people away from that and think of the psychological significance of it, which, to the Wizard Factory and Thunder Wizard's credit, there is a psychological significance of this in the way that it programs people to be a victim, to not chase material gain, to just work a job until you retire, be a good person, ask for forgiveness, ask Jesus to save you, and then you'll go to heaven. And I think that is highly and very destructive and not a good thing. So I guess my goal is, and it's not going to be something I'm going to continuously do, but if I make, let's say, 3 videos a week, maybe in a 2-week span where I make 6 videos, one of those videos is going to be how you can use the Bible and reprogram your mind in the sense of taking this Bible as a bunch of people wrote this that were divinely inspired to teach a lesson. And even the parts of the Bible where it's like, if you go to this land and they don't do what you say, I can't remember the exact verses and all that, so you have to look this up yourself, but there's places in the Bible where it says, go kill these people if they don't listen to you, if they don't let you take over their land, and after you win the land, because I'm going to be helping you. This is like God, Jehovah, whoever you want to call them. Take their wives. If the girls are of age to have sex and make babies, take them too. Rape and pillage, do all that shit. That's in the Bible as well, okay? So, and I know that's destructive, but there's a lesson to be learned there. And the lesson is, this is what happens. And it's the lesson that Christianity should be teaching people, rather than saying this is the word of God. The Old Testament is before Jesus comes and shows the better way of doing things. Well, the Old Testament is what happens whenever you let, I don't know, I don't like using the word ego, but let's say you think too highly of yourself and you can't be stopped. Well, you can go around fucking things up. And guess what happens? The same God that told you to do these bad things, when you get too bad, he's going to send a flood to kill you. And that's one of the things I think people need to understand, that the God of the Bible is not the opposition of a Satan figure. And even what I'm about to say right now is not something that I believe completely, but it would be more beneficial if people understood that God of the Bible is both love and hate. It's both good and evil. And if you are not in between those, striving to be in between those, using good when you need to, using the fear-based emotions when you need to, then you run the risk of God coming and wiping you out with a flood, or turning you into a pillar of fucking salt or smoke or ash or whatever it was with the Tower of Babel. All those stories, Tower of Babel, I think he makes everybody speak different languages when they become too many people. And to me, it's just like, well, that's what just happens whenever you get too many people, too many cooks, or too many chefs and not enough cooks in the same area. I think that's something that's inevitable and it will happen regardless. So I think the Bible can teach you many things, and it's not only just to teach you that, pray to Jesus and you'll be saved. I think there's hard lessons in there that people don't want to admit that you can learn from this. So my goal for people, if they listen to this and they kind of think, oh, so the Bible can be used for good. I don't want you to think the Bible can be used for good. I want you to think of the Bible as a book that you can use to teach you the lessons of history, of the past. And you also need to take into account that the Bible has been used. People hold the Bible in the air, don't say any verses out of it, and you say, God told me to kill you motherfuckers. And that is not good. That is something we shouldn't do. And my point is, even though what the guys were saying at the Wizard Factory and Thunder Wizard were saying is true, let's say they do something, whether it's YouTube content that they're disputing or whatever the case is, they're going to have to go to a court of law. And most courts of law use the fucking Bible, okay? Therefore, this book is in our culture. It's ingrained in our culture to such a degree that most people, everybody knows about it. Most people don't believe in polytheism anymore, although there's a big resurgence of that. But the point I'm trying to get at is understanding this book that molded our culture today. Even though it may be bad, it may be good, understanding it is essential because it's part of our culture. And if you wanted to remove this book from our culture, then you need to understand this book. And you need to be able to use it to your benefit. So this way you can actually do something about it, rather than just sitting there and saying that it's all evil and people shouldn't listen to it. You're not going to get through to anybody who's been programmed to believe that that book is a holy item. That is why my tradition, ceremonial magic, and some various witchcrafts I use, we use the God names that are in that book that people have put belief and made sacred and have given energy to, and I can use that energy to my benefit. It's one way I do it, because this book has been deemed a holy item. Now, if we remove this book from our history and say it's been a satanic fucking thing this entire time, well, then who knows? Maybe my tradition wouldn't work anymore because of those God names. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So the best thing we can do is to take this Bible and write a new history for it, and say that it's been used by people who wanted power above all else, and it was used to control people. But if you break down the stories and you take lines out of the book, and not cherry pick, but you take it as a big context, you can discover some things. And some of these things, I'm of the belief that a lot of these stories, especially the good ones, were written and inspired divinely, and might not even have been the people from the Bible. Matthew, Luke, John, their stories might be older pagan shamanism, witchcraft fucking traditions that were just stolen. The Old Testament as well could have been the same thing. Okay, because like he has this medicine wheel, the shaman, Thunder Wizard, has this medicine wheel, and it looks a hell of a lot like a Solomon sigil, but that medicine wheel seems to be predates King Solomon by fucking, I don't even know how many years, but it's like 5, maybe 6 fucking digits. Okay, so that's a long time. So there's proof there that the things in the Bible were taken from older traditions. So if we can't get our older traditions or get a good view of our older traditions, well, we can take the Bible and think of it in a way that some of these things in here, not all, but some of these things can be old versions of magic, of witchcraft, that we can use to our benefit if we understand them. Like I say in this video, when I do a candle of Saturn, I put the name Satan on there. I put the name Anshar on there. So Satan would be the representation. And you could probably use Jehovah or Yod-Heh, Vod-Heh as the positive part of Saturn, and then Satan being the negative part of Saturn. But both of them can be used to call stuff to you. And I'm not a Satanist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't believe in one God and one devil. I believe in many energy sources, planetary energy sources that have been deified that we can use to our benefit. I believe that we are part of God, and that this story where God and Adam walk together and they create things, you can look at Adam as being the subconscious, or God being the subconscious and Adam being the conscious mind. So the subconscious says, hey, there's a cow that I just created, or that the divine created. But before, because Adam names the things and that makes it real. So there's this animal out there in the pasture that you believe, okay, well, something bigger than me created that because I can't create animals. But then us as people name that animal a cow, and that makes it real. That makes it the fucking cow. And then from there, so you can look at it as these are parts of us. And before you say, well, that's fucking stupid, blah, 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 blah. Well, that means we're bad and good. Well, absolutely. We are bad and good. The bad things that God does, people have done. Look at the wars. Look at all these bad atrocities that have happened over the years. People are capable of evil things. Why would the God or the divine, which is our connection through our subconscious or unconscious, why would that be any different? So to me, this book can teach us something, and it should teach you something, and it could be different for everybody. To pretend it's a holy object and it's the word of God and it doesn't matter what God does in that book, we have to accept it, I think is stupid. But I think if you accept that God is both good and bad, and all the planetary energies and all the deities have that within them, and you accept that, then you can really start doing something phenomenal with this body of work. And you always have in the back of your mind at the same time that, okay, well, this might have been used by Christianity and it's to get you to not believe in deities, but there's a really strong pull to deities and different energies and God, like just God and Jesus and the fucking Holy Spirit, that aspect of itself. When I make my circle and I'm in ritual, I call it the element, the elemental, and the fucking watcher. That's another 3 there. I have myself, my physical body, I have my mental body, my soul. You can add 3 to everything. Triangle is the first plane, plane of manifestation. Anyways, point of all this is we need to change what this Bible means, because it's not going anywhere unless we have a good idea on how to get rid of it and start a new book and people just figure out their own spirituality. Problem is, people don't know where to start because our history's been hidden from us and suppressed. So let's use the book we do have to figure out our roots. And let's ask our subconscious minds, our unconscious. Let's meditate and ask the questions of, is there use to this book? Can I figure something else out? And then you'll get the answer like I did. So I woke up this morning with this answer, telling me that I need to make this little preamble, this little introduction to what I'm about to play here, because there's something we can use the Bible for. This is what I was told. And like I said, I've been very adamant in the past about using the Qlipoth, which is the inverse of the tree of life, which some people think is evil and dark magic. I use the dark part of the moon. I do black magic. I do light magic as well. I am not someone who believes in Christianity anymore. Yet I'm here saying that I think you can use the Bible if you think about it in the context of these are traditions that were stolen from other people that may have been the tradition that we're supposed to be doing right now. So anyways, without further ado, let's play a song since we're going to be breaking the programming of this fucking book. Let's break some fucking stuff. Let's break shit. All right, let's get into the show. Thank you for listening. Once again, I appreciate everybody out there who tunes into this shit and watches my videos on YouTube. And yeah, thank you for helping me out and helping yourself out. Thank you for trying to change the world. We have to do that. That's our fucking moral obligation. Fuck trying to find your passion and your purpose. Let's fix some fucking problems first. Well, shouldn't that be our passion and purpose potentially?
It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, your life is on contract. Your best bet is to stay away, mother. It's just one of those days. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit. I think you better quit, let this slip, or you'll be leaving with a fat lip. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit. I think you better quit talking that fish. It's just one of those days, feeling like a freight train. First one to complain, leaves with the blood stain. Damn right, I'm a maniac. You better watch your back, cause I'm f***ing up your program. And if you're stuck up, you're just locked up. Next in line to get f***ed up. Your best bet is to stay away, mother. It's just one of those days. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit. I think you better quit, let this slip, or you can leave it with a fat lip. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit. I think you better quit talking that ish, so come and get it. I feel like shit. My suggestion is to keep your distance, cause right now I'm dangerous. We've all felt like this and been treated like this. All those motherfuckers that wanna step up, I hope you know I pack a chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break something tonight. I pack a chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break something tonight. I pack a chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break your breaking face tonight. Give me something great. Give me something great. Just give me something great. How about your face? I hope you know I'm like a chainsaw. What? A chainsaw. What? I'm like a chainsaw. What? So come and get it. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit. I think you better quit, let this slip, or you can leave it with a fat lip. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit. I think you better quit talking that ish, so come and get it. Through the
to the things that'll bring the trauma. Overseas, yeah, we trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists here living in the USA, the big CIA, the Bloods and the Crips and the KKK. But if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then you're bound to get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate. And that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach and what you turn the other cheek. Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? The love?
It just ain't the same. Always new change. New days are strange. Is the world insane? If love and peace is so strong, why are the pieces of love that don't belong? Nations dropping bombs, chemical gases filling lungs of little ones with ongoing suffering as the youth are young. So ask yourself, is the loving really gone? So I could ask myself, really what is going wrong in this world that we living in? People keep on giving in, making wrong decisions, only visions of them dividends. Not respecting each other, denying thy brother. A war's going on, but the reason's undercover. The truth is kept secret, it's swept under the rug. If you never know truth, then you never know love. Where's the love, y'all? Come on, I don't know. Where's the truth, y'all? Come on, I don't know. Where's the love, y'all?
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach and what you turn the other cheek. Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? The love?
I feel the weight of the world on my shoulder. As I'm getting older, your people get colder. Most of us only care about money making. Selfishness got us following the wrong direction. Wrong information always shown by the media. Negative images is the main criteria. Infecting the young minds faster than bacteria. Kids wanna act like what they see in the cinemas. Yeah. Whatever happened to the values of humanity? Whatever happened to the fairness and equality? Instead of spreading love, we're spreading animosity. Lack of understanding leading us away from unity. That's the reason why sometimes I'm feeling under. That's the reason why sometimes I'm feeling down. It's no wonder why sometimes I'm feeling under. Gotta keep my faith alive till love is found. Now ask yourself,
Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love?
sing with me, y'all.
One word. We only got one word. That's all we got. One word. And something's wrong with it. Something's wrong with it. Something's wrong with the world. Yeah, we only got one word. That's all we got. One word.
To the realization that the Bible is more a guide to how to live, how to be a man, how to be a woman, probably more of a man, but how to, and what not to do and what to do and why to do things from ancient people. And I'm all for the idea that the Bible stories were stolen from previous stories, from previous generations of pagan or Norse or any other mythology. I'm all for that, because that happens, and he explains a good way to do that, whether you think it's accurate or not. He talks about how two tribes got together, and the two tribes get together and they can decide to fight, and the stronger tribe wins, but the tribe you're trying to conquer is going to lose half the people, and you're going to lose half the people, so you're going to end up being the same size tribe. Whereas instead of doing that, you can have a celestial battle of the gods in the cosmos, which ends up turning out to being just a conversation back and forth between you and this new tribe, explaining why your god's better than their god. And he says that, they probably come to the conclusion that, okay, well, your god does all these things, and it works because you guys are still alive. our God does all these things and it works, and our God's still, and because our tribe's still alive. So out of God A and God B, we merge them together and we get God C. And I think this is part of this Roman mythology of the planets. I think that's why this is important, because I think that's happened. And he draws on the Mesopotamians at this point, where Marduk, he's a god that has eyes all around his head. The gods elect him to take out Tiamat, which is where the asteroid belt was, which was a watery planet. Now, depending on where you look, some of the stories say she was the sun's wife, and then the sun was bounded to where it was supposed to stay there, and Mercury had to stay beside it, like its little fucking moon around the sun. But in that story, it's in what Peterson talks about, it's salt water and a freshwater monsters that were male and female that got together, and Marduk, or whatever that god's name is, that took it out, was able to speak magical words, which was to stop all the demons that Tiamat shot at it, because he took out Tiamat's husband at first. And the Mesopotamian story I read initially said that it was a planet thing. So Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Mars, they were all wanting to get rid of their mom, Tiamat, because Tiamat heard that they wanted to kill their dad. Once again, this is why I think it's important what Peterson said. It's like, okay, well, these gods against these gods. So it's one tribe's gods against another tribe's gods. And Mesopotamia was made out of what happened after the god they created and got elected by all their gods combined. They created this new god, took out the problem, and they built the world out of the fucking pieces after, and that was Mesopotamia. It was the two tribes that came together and made this tribe, this country, this whatever it was. And I think that's useful information. And these things echo in all the stories of the Bible. And, this is why I played the Gnostic story that I heard of, because I saw the same thing that he talks about, how Tiamat, the root word for Tiamat is, I forget, it's another T-A, some other word. And that word is important because at the beginning of Genesis, whenever the god is looking at the water, it's a reference to that. And the Gnostic story was that there's 36 archons, and the last one was Sophia, and she created this god, and that god became the god of the Bible, which, say what you want about it. I thought it was I didn't care if that's true or not true. I think it's I like history, I like learning about past things, gods and all that. The point I'm trying to get at is, when Peterson's on stage teaching this shit, he's using all his knowledge and then all the thoughts that come to him, because he says point blank out, and I think I recorded it as well, that he does these things because it helps him think. You work things out when you talk, when you write, when you record video, whatever the case is, kind of like I'm doing, and you put things together. If you have all the thoughts in your head all day long, if you don't start saying them out loud or writing, you're not going to put things together. It gives you a chance to, conscious mind's busy doing something, talking, and as you say the one point that you got from the thoughts, the ideas, whatever, that's the conscious from Mercury or Odin or whatever, or it's because your conscious is busy, the subconscious can give you these ideas and these memories. It doesn't matter, and then your conscious puts them together as you get it from the subconscious, and it's beautiful, and it works fucking fantastic. And that's what Peterson's doing on stage, and I want everybody to understand that whether you like the Bible or not, you can learn from this, and it's even more so helps you stay grounded. Like I said about Thunder Wizard helps me stay grounded. Well, so does Peterson. So that's my thoughts specifically on Peterson being a channel, being somebody who's getting wisdom from whatever you think gods are, whether you're like me and you think they're spirits that are around us, because we don't understand the mind, we don't understand the brain. Everybody out here talking about the conscious and unconscious, whether it's Thunder Wizard, Frater, Xavier, anybody, we have a general enough basic knowledge of these things to be able to do what we need to do metaphysically, whatever, to do our magic. But no one actually understands this shit. Because the brain surgeons, the fucking, and the anyways, the people that study the fucking brain, the scientists, will tell you that even when it comes to DNA, there's guys on record saying our DNA is such a mystery. It's been around for so long. It makes no sense. And, you know, it's alien-like. And not necessarily like extraterrestrial from up there, probably from inner Earth, but I already did an episode on that, so I won't get down there. The point is, we pretend like we know these things, and it's because we have to have confidence when we teach them, so people take on our ideas so they can fix their lives. So if I came out here and told you, well, I don't really know, but this is how it works for me, you know, whatever. Some people might like it, some people might not. But we really are barely scratching at the surface, because if the scientists are barely scratching at the surface, I mean, as an example, how the fuck would I say that? Anyways, I won't even get into it, but there's so much to all this. But anyways, besides that, the point I'm trying to get at is Peterson is channeling information, and he's using the Bible as like the tarot cards. There's a reason to be on that stage talking about it. So to just not watch it because you have an aversion to the Bible is drastically wrong. Because like I said, I get more and more the impression that you can use the Bible. And he says it too, like he knows the Bible was used to force people, slave people, get rid of shit. But at the same time, the story we're just talking about between the two tribes, taking God A and God B and making God C. That is what Christianity ended up doing. So they realized that, you know, instead of sacrificing half their people, half the other people, and only having, you know, because, I mean, they did do that. They went around burning people, killing people, they didn't conform. But then eventually they decided, okay, well, we can't just keep doing this. We're preaching love and, you know, all this shit. Yeah, we're going around killing people. So they took on their deities, changed the names. And this is why, like, if I do Saturn, I'm doing Satan. I'm writing Satan on there too, because some people think Saturn's Satan. I'm writing Anshar, which is the Mesopotamian name. I'm going to write Kronos. I might put Odin as Saturn. I'm going to put every fucking no name that I know that's been used for Saturn on that bitch. I might even write the Grim Reaper, for God's sakes. And that's why there's more power in all these names. But that's what ended up happening. And he's trying to teach that. He's trying to use the Bible as a way, because if you're an atheist, let's say, see, I don't believe in the God of the Bible, but I believe that there's a higher power and there's a God. And I believe that there's 7 planets that we can use their energies, whether that's energy centers in our body, or if you don't think the chakras are energy centers, well, we have, and I also have Peterson saying, well, is the cosmos out there, or is the cosmos in here? And he thinks it's both. If you don't think Peterson talks about magic, you haven't listened to the man. And I'll play probably 1 or 2 little minute clips where he directly talks about speaking things into existence, using your conscious mind and your subconscious mind to you through DreamWorks, and using your conscious mind to bring things into your reality that we don't understand it, but it is happening regardless if we understand it or not. And that's magic. You can learn magic from this. So, without further ado, I think I'm just going to get into I'll just get into the first.
Good question. Now, the postmodern answer was we can't. And that's not a good answer, because you drown in chaos under those circumstances, right? You can't make sense of anything. And that's not good, because it's not neutral to not make sense of things. It's very anxiety-provoking. It's very depressing, because if things are so chaotic that you can't get a handle on them, your body defaults into emergency preparation mode, and your heart rate goes up and your immune system stops working, and like you burn yourself out. You age rapidly because you're surrounded by nothing you can control. That's an existential crisis, right? It's anxiety-provoking and depressing, very hard on people. And even more than that, it turns out that the way that we're constructed neurophysiologically is that we don't experience any positive emotion unless we have an aim and we can see ourselves progressing towards that aim. It isn't precisely attaining the aim that makes us happy, as you all know if you've ever attained anything, because as soon as you attain it, then the whole little game ends. Then you have to come up with another game, right? So it's Sisyphus. And that's okay, but it does show that the attainment can't be the thing that drives you, because it collapses the game.
All right, so what you just heard was huge. So he hit on when you go into emergency mode, I don't know if he said it here or not, but I think he said one of these things. He talks about the same thing about your immune system stop working. This is the fight or flight we talk about in spirituality a lot. This is the whole reason why I say it's fear-based media, going into fight or flight is so dangerous for COVID and all that shit, because if you're doing that, you're shutting off your immune system and you can't fight against COVID. And then after that, he gets into, Frater says, if you cast for money, you get the money, and then what? You'll be happy for a day, and you pay shit off, money's gone, then what do? So you don't cast for the end, you cast for the means to continue making the money. So you cast for something that's going to keep making the money. So this is why Thunder Wizard talks about your passion and your purpose so much as well. If you find your passion and purpose, then you can find a way to make that profitable, so you're doing something you love, and you're making money at the same time to survive. And it's not about the money at this point. And that's what Peterson is saying. So he goes into great detail a lot about this, and it's the fact that one second, sorry. But the reason why that's so important is because when you're going to achieve something, so you're doing a magical operation, whatever the case is, you might be excited about it, you might not be excited about it, I don't know. But when I started my initiation phase, I was so excited about starting magic and doing everything needed to be done in my initiation to get to the next levels and start magic. And I couldn't stop. Time stopped when I was doing that. And it's the one way the body tells you that you're doing something worthwhile. That's one way to figure out kind of what your purpose is, in a matter of speaking. But not only that, like you're working at a job, you think you're up for a promotion, and then you find out you got the promotion. Well, endorphins are released, If you are working out and you're trying to lose weight, and you start seeing yourself looking better in the mirror, and then you finally go weigh yourself and you lost that weight, well then you stay on track and you keep, it's an upward spiral, and your body it's a system. This is magic. It's just a different way of looking at it. That's more practical, and this is what I meant by the whole thing that keeps me grounded, because he talks about it in a practical way. He's teaching magic to people. Just people don't understand it, that's all. Or maybe they don't understand it, but they just don't think it's magic. But he's using a Bible that's basically a grimoire. The Bible, he's using a book, it's basically a grimoire. It's filled with esoteric knowledge. Greater Xavier has an Old Testament fucking program on how to use the Old Testament to do magic. Like, it's incredible. So, he's teaching magic, whether you want to believe it or not. Anyways, I'm going to let him keep talking and proving what I just said.
I know you stated in the last lecture that the importance for setting aims in life and to kind of have goals to work towards, right? So my question was, how do you do that if you don't know where you want to go? Because that's kind of where I got stuck on your future authoring program.
Okay, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think it's echoed to some degree in the structure of the biblical stories, and in this manner. So there's this notion in the Old Testament that morality is following a sequence of prohibitions. There's a bunch of bad things you shouldn't do, and then basically you're good enough. And I think there's wisdom in that. I think that's kind of where children start, right? I love children and all that, but they're crazy little creatures, and they need to be, civilized. And partly what you do is you lay prohibitions on them, and mostly what you're trying to do is lay prohibitions on them for the behaviors that, if they manifested, would make their life miserable. So I have another chapter in this book that I'm writing called "Don't Let Your Children Do Anything That Makes You Dislike Them," and the idea there is that your job as a parent is to help your children become the sort of 4-year-olds that adults genuinely smile at when they come into a room, because that makes the entire social environment both truthful and welcoming. And so your job is to make them desirable social beings, and a lot of that is prohibition. Okay, and there's this ethical transformation. It happens to some degree in the tradition of in the prophetic tradition, where there's a spirit that's seen in some sense to rise above the law. But there's a real transformation between the Old Testament and the New Testament, because the Old Testament is prohibition, and the New Testament is, well, here's the good things you do once you're more than merely prohibiting yourself from from impulsive sin, let's say. There's a positive good to be
But I'm
accomplished.
thankful we had two
Well, you
more
might say,
little
well, I don't know
girls.
what the positive
They're
good
beautiful and
is.
smart.
Fair enough, man.
And they're gonna get
So
rich and take care of
this is
people
why
already.
this thing that I've said to people has become this crazy internet meme, but that's to clean up your room. And which is a lot better and more useful than people think. It's a lot harder too. But the first thing you do, I think, and I learned this in part from Solzhenitsyn when he was trying to iron out his soul when he was in the Gulag, because he was trying to figure out how he got there, how he contributed to how he got there. You know, not Stalin and Hitler, even though they were kind of to blame, you know, but there wasn't much he could do about that. I think what you have to do, and this is part of humility, is you have to look around you within your sphere of influence, like the direct sphere of influence, and fix the things that announce themselves as in need of repair. And those are often small things, you know, and they can be like your room. Put it in order, because the thing is, it isn't exactly so important that your room is in order, although it is. What's important is that you learn how to distinguish between chaos and order, and to be able to act in a manner that produces order. And in most households, there's 100 things that could be done to just make it less hideous and horrible. And so practicing that it's a real useful form of meditation, and it's also I think it's a divine act, because you're taking chaos. And you know, if you pay attention even to a room, it's so interesting. And I learned, because I've renovated many places now and tried to make them beautiful. And one of the things that I've really learned is that even if you own a structure, unless you've investigated all the nooks and crannies and cleaned them up and put your own imprint on them and made them yours, they're not yours. The mere fact of physical ownership doesn't make them yours. You have to establish a dynamic relationship with the objects before they're actually yours. And I think you can do something as simple as just sit on your bed and think, okay, there's probably like 5 things I could do today so that tomorrow morning is slightly better than this morning was, or at least I'm not falling behind. And those will usually be, it's like having to eat a toad in the morning, right? It's like, it's not going to be something you want to do. There'll be things you're trying to avoid. They're snakes, essentially. But if you ask yourself, like you're asking someone, which I think is a form of prayer, if you ask yourself, instead of telling yourself, you know, what is it that I could do to set things more right today that I would actually do? It's usually some small thing because you're not that disciplined, you know. Then you can go do it. And then you put the world together a little more when you do that. And that spreads out. But you also construct yourself into something that's better able to call order forth from chaos. And that makes you just incrementally stronger. And then the next day, you can maybe take on a slightly larger task. And like, you get the benefit of compound interest if you do that. It's a tremendously powerful technique. And I think if you do that, at some point, instead of just having to fix things up that are not good, you'll start to get a glimmer of the positive things that you could do. You know, the positive things that you could do that would actually constitute a vision. And that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
All right, so that's fucking huge what he just said there. Fucking huge. So, on top of simply trying to find your passion, your purpose, because that guy did the self-authoring program, and he wants to know what his passion and purpose is. Self-authoring program is my basic knowledge of it is you write down, if there's, I don't know if it's 3 or 5 things you want that are realistic, you write them down, and 3 or 5 things that you really don't want to happen. So you have your heaven and your hell, and you start writing down steps to take to your hell. Well, he got stuck on the part of, because he doesn't know what he wants, so he can't answer the question of what he wants to do in life. And if everything was possible within realistic circumstances, he can't figure out what the fuck he would want. And I think a lot of people have that problem, because I even struggle with that from time to time. So this is huge what he says. So instead of starting with just trying to brainstorm about all these things that you may or may not want to do, you start doing the things you're supposed to do. So, because like, who are you to try to get something that you want? You know, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a fucking podcast YouTube fucking star, but you're not doing the dishes, you're not helping your wife at home, you're not raising your fucking kids, you're not keeping your house clean. yet you want to have the discipline and the fortitude to be able to fucking, influence a bunch of people, yet you don't have control of your own life. That's what I glean from this, and it may be because that's what I need to do. But I think it's highly probable that that's what he means, and that's when it starts happening. So, for me, example, today I wanted to record. As soon as I woke up, I wanted to record. I wanted to do this right away, but instead I did the dishes. I put up the plastic on my back deck for my dog when she's not in the house to be cooler or to be hotter because the winter's coming. And it's nice outside today, so it's a good day to do it. So this way, because my back deck is where the west is, so the west wind comes through there. So it also helps my heat, my back, a patio sliding door that goes out to my patio, my back deck. So it's 2 windows, basically. And so the heater's right kind of beside it, so it's kind of shitty when you're running the heater and the heat's just, there to stop the cold, and it's just keeping the house neutral. So I put that up. I did a bunch of laundry. I swept all the floors in my house. I do that daily. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a witch that I keep all my fucking floors clean all the fucking time. I always got a broom in my hand. I don't know, but that's something I've been doing since before I knew or thought I was even a witch. I've always had a broom in my hand. Maybe it's because I intuitively know, because like you listen to people that talk about hoodoo or Santeria or Palo, and they have hot foot powder, and they say negative spirits like to hang out on the floor, and when you do a cleansing, you got to get all the corners and all the spaces under the bed and all that, because that's where these negative entities like to stay. They like clutter, they like mess. So there's a lot to what he's saying there that is very magical. Like I already previously said, Frederick Xavier says this in his free channel. He also says it in his paid programs to keep your fucking house clean. And it's true. We were like, oh fuck, we don't get money until Wednesday. We got some money in the bank, but all these bills have to get paid. And then she finds out, well, I'm actually getting paid on Tuesday, so we're getting money a day earlier. And then we find out, we're getting extra money on that day. And then all of a sudden, is it because of all the candles I did? I don't know, maybe. But I also we're getting an extra check, because they realize with all this COVID shit, people being at home, that people with kids should have more money. So we're getting extra money by the end of November or something like that. So, But, so in other words, is this extra money we're getting because every day I don't do my passion, my recording. I don't do any of this shit until after I did my chores. I wake up, I clean my bedroom, where my candles are, if there's any incense ash, take the floor, I clean up all that shit. I wax, I make a fell, whatever the case is. Then I make my fucking bed, and then I bring all my dirty laundry from my room downstairs, and then I do a few loads of laundry. Then I make my wife some food, and then I do the fucking dishes, and then I do the extra things, like we're doing renovations, so I paint the moldings, and I put the moldings up. The molding didn't fit on one side, so I had to cut it, I measured that, I gotta finish that when I get home. I mean, there's certain things I can, as long as I get a certain amount of things done, then I can. And I've come to realize that if I don't do so much of this, and I try to record, the recording turns out all fucked up, or circumstances will get in the way. And also by doing this every day, it's become a repetitive thing that I don't even think about it anymore. So when I'm in the kitchen cooking, I automatically start the dishes. And I'm automatically listening to something to get me inspired. And, all these things just keep... And they just keep working out. So, yeah, I'm doing candles at night. Then I'm also taking actions and keeping my house clean. So there's no negative energies or entities around to be able to fuck up my magic. And, it helps the kids see, okay, well, cleaning is part of life. Because if you want your kids to clean, you're not cleaning up. Well, it's going to be very hard for you to say clean up, because they haven't ever seen you clean up. So they're not going to know how to do it, first of all. And second of all, why would they do it? But anyways. So that's one extremely important aspect of this, and why it is magical. I mean, if this is probably going to be a long enough fucking video already, so I'm not going to probably put the Frederick Xavier or the birch things on here that I was talking about, but maybe next video I will. I'll segue back to it somehow. Okay? After I watch this, there's always things that I forget to mention, so I'll put that in another video and I'll put those on there just so you know. But on top of that, finding your passion. I'm going to play another clip after too that he talks about it. But the whole dopamine thing, when you're doing something and you realize that you lost track of time is fucking, you don't even realize time's passing. And, You know, you're just having a great time, like you're so engaged in something. Well, when those things happen, it's because you're doing something that is worth doing. So besides all of that, being in the magical part and finding your passion and purpose that Thunder Wizard talks about, he's teaching you that if you take his steps, you'll find that passion and purpose. But you don't even need to do that far. You start taking these simple steps of cleaning up your house and doing things, you know. And, you know, if you're not used to it, the first few days, you might just fall asleep. But here's the thing. I wanted something to talk about. I didn't know what to talk about. I did my chores. I go and do my meditation. And I do my ritual in my head. And then I fucking start drifting off. It's like sleeping while being awake. And before you think that's crazy, Carl Jung used to do it all the time. His red book, that's what that was made of. It's the imagination, being as an imagination. Basically, while he's awake, he's sleeping. And it's just a way of, you know, in my opinion, it's DMT release while you're meditating. And I'm getting fairly good at doing that. And I think it's why at night when I dream, I'm able to take control of my dream. Because I'm doing this during the day. Now, during the day when I get in these things, the only control I have is to be able to remind myself, okay, because I realize I'm in this, and I realize, okay, fuck, I'm actually in my bed right now, but right now I'm actually somewhere. Most of the time it's in my town. Like the last one I had, I was trick-or-treating. It was 3 years ago, and we were around this place around my mom's house. But the setting was 3 years ago, but the knowledge I had was present-day knowledge of the stuff I know now. And when I realized that I was in my bed, there was a person there laying down, and there was a girl there laying down, and older woman who kind of looked like a hippie, and I asked the one guy that I was speaking to, because that's what happened. We went to this guy for trick-or-treating, and it happened exactly like it happened 3 years ago during Halloween. And he said, oh, she's busy right now. She's doing a meditation, and she's a witch. And I'm like, oh, yeah? I was going to say that's funny, but I didn't say anything. And then he's like, yeah, she's it's this old tradition, and it was just weird. But it's like this old tradition where you pretend you grow roots out of your feet and you get rid of all the negative or negativity or too much, you know, harmful energy out of your body, basically, is what he meant. But I think he said negative energy. I'm like, holy fuck. So then when I came out of that, that's the first thing I fucking did. Because to me, it was my subconscious telling me, Corey, you haven't done this in a while. Pretend, visualize that the roots are growing out of your feet and get rid of, see all this negativity, harmful energy that you've accumulated from people, from the day, from their stresses, and have it come out of your body. And after I did it, I felt great. And then I took on my projects, and now I'm recording. So, and right now I'm at dance, and my daughter and my wife are about to come out, and I'm close to done. And that's because this is something I love fucking doing. It's one of the reasons why I watch Peterson, and I watch Frater, and I watch Birch, and I talk about them all the time. Because I want to put in my 10,000 hours and do this. And, you know, can I be on a stage like Peterson and selling out stadiums and, you know, doing what he's doing? I don't know. With COVID, who knows? But I'd love to be able to help people in a positive way find their power, get spiritual, manifest the things they want once I fine-tune it or whatever the case is. So I'm watching guys that do that, and I'm learning how they do it, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, how I can do that myself. And one of the reasons I record is so I can get my thoughts out, so I can teach, so I can do all this shit. It's very beneficial and helpful. But anyways, so my wife and daughter are coming right now, so I'm going to resume this when I get home in the driveway. Thanks for listening. I'll be right back. Listen to some more Peterson, I guess.
That's a real challenge for people, and I think it's a mistake to think that way. Because I think consciousness is far more than we think it is, but it's still something we have to grapple with. I'm a psychoanalytic thinker, and what that means is that I believe that people are collections of subpersonalities, and that those subpersonalities are alive. They're not machines. They have their viewpoint, they have their wants, they have their perceptions, they have their arguments, they have their emotions. They're like low-resolution representations of you. You know, when you get angry, it's a very low-resolution representation of you. It only wants rage, or it only wants something to eat, or it only wants water, it only wants sex. It's you, but shrunk and focused in a specific direction. And all those motivational systems are very, very ancient, very archaic, and very, very powerful. And they play a determining role in the manner in which we manifest ourselves. And as Freud pointed out with the id, we have to figure out how to take all those underlying animalistic motivations and emotions and civilize them in some way so that we can all live in the same general territory without tearing each other to shreds, which is maybe the default position of both chimpanzee and humanity. So I take that seriously, the idea that we're a loose collection of spirits, and that it says in the Old Testament somewhere that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and I think this is akin to that. If you know that you're not in control of yourself thoroughly, and that there are other factors behind the scenes, like the Greeks thought that human beings were the playthings of the gods. That's the way they conceptualized the world. And they sort of meant the same thing. They meant that there are these great forces that move us, that we don't create, that we're subordinate to in some sense. Not entirely, but we can be subordinate to them, and they move our destinies. That was the Greek view, and there's something. It teaches you humility to understand that there's a hell of a lot more going on behind the scenes, and you're the driver of a very complex vehicle, but you don't understand the vehicle very well, and it's got its own motivations and methods, and sometimes you think it's doing something, and it's doing something completely different. You see that in psychotherapy all the time, because you help someone unwind a pattern of behavior that they've manifested forever. First of all, they describe it, then they become aware of it, then maybe they start to see what the cause is. They had no idea why they were acting like that. They have to have the memory that produced the behavioral pattern to begin with. It has to be brought back to mind, and then it has to be analyzed and assessed, and then they have to think about a different way of acting, and it's extraordinarily complex. So, psychoanalytic, literary. Well, there's this postmodern idea about literature and about the world, for that matter, that if you take a complex piece of literature like a Shakespeare play, there's no end to the number of interpretations that you can make of it. You can interpret each word, you can interpret each phrase, each sentence, each paragraph. You can interpret the entire play. The way you interpret it depends on how many other books you've read, depends on your orientation in the world. It depends on a very, very large number of things, how cultured you are or how much culture you lack. All of those things. It opens up a huge vista for potential interpretation. And so the postmodernists sort of stubbed their toe on that and thought, well, if there's this vast number of interpretations of any particular literary work, how can you be sure that any interpretation is more valid than any other interpretation? And if you can't be sure, then how do you even know those are great works? How do you know they can't? Maybe they're just works that the people in power have used to facilitate their continual accession of power, which is really a postmodern idea and a very, very cynical one, but it has its point. But the thing is, it's grounded in something real, right? It's like, yes, you can interpret things forever. I want to show you something here, just briefly. We'll go back to it later. Look at this. This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So, at the bottom here, every single one of those lines is a biblical verse, okay? Now, the length of the line is proportionate to how many times that verse is referred to in some way by some other verse. So you say, well, this is the first hyperlinked book, right? I'm dead serious about that. You can't click and get the hyperlinks, obviously, but it's a thoroughly hyperlinked book, and it's because, well, the people who worked on these stories that are hypothetically at the end, right, which is the end can't affect the beginning. That's the rule of time, right? What happens now can't affect what happened to you 10 years ago, even though it actually can, but whatever. Well, you reinterpret things, right, and then they're not the same, but whatever, we won't get into that. But technically speaking, the present cannot affect the past, but if we're looking at a piece of literature, that's not right, because when you write the end, you know what was at the beginning, and when you write the beginning or edit it, you know what's at the end, and so you can weave the whole thing together. And there's 65,000 cross-references, and that's what this map shows. And so that's a great visual representation of the book. And then you can see, well, why is it deep? Why is the book deep? Well, just imagine how many pathways you could take through that, right? I mean, you just journey through that forever. You'd never, ever get to the end of it. There's permutations and combinations, and every phrase is dependent on every other phrase, and every verse is dependent on every other, not entirely, but 65,000 is not a bad start. And so, okay, well, so So that's another issue in some sense that seems to make the postmodernist critique even more correct. How in the world are you going to extract out a canonical interpretation of something like that? It's like it's not possible. But here's the issue, as far as I can tell. So the postmodernists extended that critique to the world. They said, look, well, a text is complicated enough. You can't extract out a canonical interpretation. What about the world? The world's way more complicated than a text, and so there's an infinite number of ways that you can look at the world. And so how do we know that any one way is better than any other way? And that's a good question. Now, the postmodern answer was we can't. And that's not a good answer, because you drown in chaos under those circumstances, right? You can't make sense of anything. And that's not good, because it's not neutral to not make sense of things. It's very anxiety-provoking. It's very depressing, because if things are so chaotic that you can't get a handle on them, your body defaults into emergency preparation mode, and your heart rate goes up, and your immune system stops working, and like you burn yourself out, you age rapidly.
All right. So I can only do about 7, 5, sometimes even like 1 minute of this shit at a time, because there's so much to unpack in there. So in that clip I just showed you, he started off with talking about our, let's call them urges, emotional things that happen, but they're more primal. So on some level, I don't know. Anyways, on some level, when it comes to wanting to make babies and eating food, it's sometimes beyond your control. So I don't know about you, but when I'm hungry, I fucking eat. When it comes to a man, and I'm not saying this to be rude or anything like that, women can have sex more on command than men. That's why masturbation is more prominent among men than maybe women. And this is something I don't want to get into, because I can't really speak on another gender that I'm not. And I don't remember any past lives where I was. So, point is, though, when you become angry sometimes because something happens, or you remember something or whatever, sometimes these things happen almost as if, it's out of your control. And I played this part before, or a similar part before, because he's speaking about deities here. Like something like Mars Aryan. I don't know if he actually says Mars in this part or not. I know another part I recorded prior, he actually talked about Mars being, anger. And this is why it's been deified, personified as, maybe it's Aries in a Greek tradition. But the point is, and he talks about the Greeks and how, if you actually look at the things like the Greeks did, you actually become more humbled. And, because the gods are using us to play things to a certain extent, but the reason why these things are personified is because they live within everybody. Everybody has these urges, okay? So maybe unless you become a monk, you get depolarized, and maybe these urges are, it's not so easy, and that's why becoming a ceremonial magician, part of the training is becoming depolarized so that these things can't grip you and control you. And becoming depolarized isn't the same as what he says about, it's not okay to be neutral and not find reasons or solutions to either agree or disagree with things. So when I say stuff like, well, for me, learning about if we went to the moon or not is something I don't care about so much, because I can't prove it either way. And I have opinions, and I have thoroughly developed my opinion on that. But once again, whether I go out and I argue with people about, yes, we went to the moon because of this, or no, we went to the moon because of this, or we can't go to the moon because of this, and it's not going to do anybody any fucking good. And there's a lot of information to just put out there just because. But this is why you can listen to Jordan Peterson using the Bible. You can learn witchcraft. I mean, right here he's talking about deities, and how these are primordial. This helped me out a lot when I learned that, the reason why we have so many deities is because so many different traditions around the world personified these emotions that everybody has. And what is a deity? What is anger? Well, it's Mars energy. It's a god. And why is it a god? Well, it's because It lives in everybody. It never dies. You can die and come back, and let's say we can prove reincarnation for some reason, which we can't. But if you die and come back, you're always going to experience anger unless you get some kind of control. But even then, you're still going to be polarized in some area of your life. You can't be completely depolarized and get rid of anger completely. So this is why it's a God, because it's within all of us. It's within everybody. It never dies. And it's powerful, especially when it comes to anger. That's why it feels good to get angry. I don't know if I have it on this one or not, but he talks about how that's why getting angry sometimes feels good, because it's a positive and a negative emotion. And that's why action is associated with fire, which is associated with Mars, because sometimes when you get angry, it pulls you or pushes you, whichever one you want to use, to take action and do something. Getting fucked over so much, and a bully's picking on you over and over and over again. My dad had a story like this. He got picked on, and he was a little guy for a while until he hit his growth spurt, and then this guy would literally dunk him in the toilet and shit like that. And the one day when he went to do it, my dad had enough, and he fucking swung. One-hit wonder, knocked the guy on his ass. Oh, you fucking nuts, LeBlanc. Even though he picked on him all these other days, never fucked with him once again. That action was provoked by Marsarian anger. I'm going to get fucking dunked in the toilet again. I can't keep putting up with this. I got to do something. His mom kept telling him, my grandma kept telling him over and over again to stick up for himself, or else it's going to keep happening. And he just wouldn't. And one day he did. And, I'm not going to justify war or anything like that, but sometimes you need to do things like this, especially, I think both men and women. Girls are picking on other girls. Well, anyways, doesn't matter. But that was like the first part of this. And then he ends up getting into the biblical hyperlinks, which is kind of a cool thing. And that's why this book is useful. It's any divinely inspired book is useful. Now, what the church and priests and people and schools and establishments and Roman Catholic, school boards and all that, what they do with that and teach and preach is not so cool, right? I get that, and I'm not gonna fucking pretend like that's not something that hasn't happened. And he even says that in this. I'm not trying to defend him or not defend him. I'm trying to state that you can learn witchcraft, spirituality, new age, fucking whatever, from listening to Jordan Peterson, because he's spent a lifetime of studying philosophers, psychologists, and history, and a vast majority of his life looking at the darkest things that happen in humanity and how we can fix that. I don't think I have it anymore, and I might record it and put it on here, but this is already pretty long. But in his newest one, he says, and it was one of the most powerful things I ever heard, and it's almost like a reason for what I do and most people who come on YouTube and talk about things, whether they're talking about conspiracies, truth, spirituality, whatever. We throw around all these fucking conspiracy theories and all these doom and gloom fucking theories, or whatever the case is. And that's great and fine. We know the problems. Everybody knows the fucking problems that we have. And right now we have this big COVID fucking problem. But isn't it time to start throwing out some fucking solutions out here? Because like he says, and this is one of the parts about the Bible thing I like, nothing is real until it's named. So Adam and God are walking around. God makes an animal. Adam calls it a fucking dog. He makes an animal, calls it a fucking bird, calls it a fucking cow. This is water, the seas. Well, maybe not the water and the seas, but you know what I mean? It's not real until you call it. So the problems are real when we say them out loud. And we can start throwing out solutions. And they can also become real and work. And that's what I try to do. I try to do that continuously. And this is where he gets into the point where postmodernists thinking that, this book is so complex, you can't fucking make sense out of it. And he says, well, life is so complex, you can't make sense out of it. And he says that's the wrong attitude to have, because when you get there, if you get into this state where everything is just so chaotic that you can't make sense of the world, well, then your body goes into a default mode of fucking, preparation and, anxiety. And that's the fight or flight fucking thing I've been talking about because of this COVID thing that people are going into left, right, and center. So they're wearing a mask. They're not taking in germs for their bodies to fight against and get stronger. I mean, we can't get rid of this virus. Anybody who thinks this virus is going to go away is mistaken, and stupidly mistaken. We don't get rid of viruses. We've cured diseases, but we don't get rid of viruses. They're here to fucking stay. And like I said, 20 years plus, we've been vaccinating our fucking cattle, horses, every fucking animal on a farm here in Canada anyways. And I've seen it in Australian people too. Like, I've looked this up pretty thoroughly. And it's there for you to see if you want. But anyways, they've had cures for that. Is there going to be a cure for us? Who knows? We have a flu shot. Why? Because you get the flu. We can't get rid of the flu, but we have a flu shot so your body can get stronger against it. But now all of a sudden we have this virus and we're just going to hide from it? That doesn't make any sense. And what's going to happen is we're going to make ourselves weaker as time goes on, wearing these fucking masks to the point where this virus can take us out. It's the wrong solution. It's not the right solution one fucking bit. It's going to make everybody have autoimmune disease where your immune system has to work in overdrive and protect you when you don't even need protecting, and just starts, I don't really like saying that, but it's the wrong solution. And this is the segue where I'm going to get a little darker on this, because he talks about the deities, and we talked about, finding your purpose and your passion and doing things like this. It's just like when I started my spirituality, before I found Jordan Peterson, these are the steps I was taking before I found the magical curriculum and doing these things. And there's a lot of people out here trying to do that. And then they realize, okay, well, Dark Night of the Soul is going to come. How do I do that? How do I bring on these things? And that's what happens. It's inevitable. You are going to hit a dark night of the soul. You're going to be tested. If your goal is to become spiritual and do these spiritual practices, whatever the case is, well, you can learn from somebody like Jordan Peterson. And it helps you to understand these psychological fucking aspects and these philosophy fucking ideas. But more than that, it teaches you a wide variety of things. And right now we're getting into the darker part of this, where, he's going to get in. I think the next part I have on here is about Mephistopheles, which, if you don't know what that is, it's the Faustian pack. That's where that comes from. And I don't know if you don't know what that is, well, you'll know it by selling your soul to the devil. This is where this comes from. Which, that play, I highly recommend reading it, or finding it, or watching it, if you can find the movie, whatever the case is, if there is a movie. But because there's way more valid information in there than just selling your soul to the devil. Because at the end, he ends up finding something very profound to do with his time, and it's helping others. And anyways, but it ends up going to the point where it's like, well, there's so much bullshit in this world. What's the fucking point of even fucking living and doing it? And then I'm going to play a clip from his newest fucking thing, where he's so emotional on stage. He's talking about when his wife's mother passed away and his wife's father. And this is what you have to prepare for. Because you can walk around like we're in fucking love and light and all that, like nothing bad's gonna happen to you, or by the time something bad happens to you, you're gonna be figuring out how to do magic to save people. But the truth of it is, even if you can save people, you're not gonna be able to save everybody, and you definitely won't be able to save yourself. We are all inevitably doomed, and when you can make peace with that, and you can figure out how to help people through hard times, then you can make the world a better fucking place. If you can try to find the information to help people get through this COVID shit and enlighten them on ways to keep their family safe. Whether you're trying to get a big message out to everybody, people go around saying it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. Okay, maybe they're providing a service, but mostly you're just going to make people think you're an idiot or uneducated. But you're better off to go around saying, okay, well, maybe there is a disease, maybe there is a virus out there that is COVID, and you have a weak immune system, it could kill you. But this mask wearing is a terrible long-term solution to this problem. It hasn't worked yet, and it won't work. And unless you're going to do breathing techniques when you get home after wearing the mask, and allow your kids to go out and eat dirt and still get in these germs that we got all our life as adults, and our parents got all their life as adults. Well, if they're not going to take those in, then their organs are not going to grow the correct way. I mean, it's the reason you go to Cuba, you need to take a shot, because if you drink their water, you're going to get sick because you haven't been exposed to those germs. So you take a shot so that you're immune to that, so that you can have those germs put in you, and whatever the case is. Well, why aren't we taking in this virus little bit by little bit? Why are we hiding from it? And it's because people with weak immune systems probably die from it. But there's this other element to it that no one talks about, and I don't know if it was Black Lives Matter, or it was one of these other things, big things that happened during COVID. And it was right around the same time that there's a bunch of court cases going on in the United States, mostly, but some other places where doctors, hospitals, and even nurses and other things were getting fucking fined and brought to court up on charges for saying every death that happened was COVID related. And their point was, well, most of the people did have the common cold in them, which is a type of COVID, and that was their fucking defense. But none of this was brought to light because they all settled out in court, billions and billions of dollars to settle out of court to make this go away. You can find this information. It's out there. I have it. I don't play it because it's highly controversial, and every time I play something like this, my video gets shut down, blocked, banned, put on a private setting, and then I can't even access it anymore. So if I put this out there, it's just going to go away. And I don't want to give them any reasons to try to fucking shut me down. But if you go out there and you look at it, you will fucking find this information. And you'll see there's more going on to this. And that I'm not saying that makes this fake, that makes this less real or any of that. I think that's what they want you to believe. Once again, anytime someone just shuts something down without any controversy or any light shown on it, means that they really don't want that in the public eye. When someone makes a big deal out of somebody getting banned, it's because they want you to see that and want you to focus on the conspiracies and the inequality and all this other crap. If you're focused on that, then you can't find the real fucking truth. But we're getting into a darker part of all this. But it doesn't change the fact that you can learn witchcraft spirituality. And maybe it takes a certain mindset, and maybe it's because my mind is like this. Maybe I'm fucking biased towards him. But I've gotten rid of my Christian program to the point where, I don't even like, having fucking a cross up in my house. But more and more I'm coming to the realization that instead of fucking taking on what the church propagated and whatever else, taking the body of work and thinking of it as, okay, well, someone was divinely inspired to write this. And even the translators may have been divinely inspired to translate it in certain ways. Who fucking knows? The point is, I can see these stories in our movies. I see these stories everywhere, and it's not by accident. But if you are continuously watching fear-based shit and thinking you're under attack and whatever the case is, it's not good for you. And we need to start finding solutions to our problems. Instead of just trying to find a happy life and trying to find your fucking purpose and passion, say, well, there's problems to fucking fix. Start fixing your own family and your own fucking problems, and then you'll be allowed to get to your passion and purpose. Otherwise, if you're just trying to find your passion and purpose with all these problems, and you're not helping or trying to help, whatever the case is, then why would you get to deserve to find that? Anyways, let's move on to the next one.
Mephistopheles, and Mephistopheles is the devil, and he actually has the devil explain himself twice, basically using the same words, which I really like. It was very profound. And basically, Goethe's Mephistopheles says, he's the adversary of the word. That's a good way of putting it, because that's how it works out mythologically. He's the figure behind the snake in the Garden of Eden, which is something we'll talk about more. But he has a sophisticated philosophy. He's not just some random troublemaker. He's got a deep philosophy, and his philosophy is quite straightforward. And it's compelling. And people are gripped by it quite often, far more often than they think. And his philosophy is, well, look around at the world. It's like Ivan Karamazov in The Brothers Karamazov, when he's trying to disabuse his younger brother of being a Christian monk. Mephistopheles says, well, look at the world. You look around the world, it's nothing but a bloodbath. It's just suffering everywhere. Everything eats everything, and people die terribly, and they're cruel to one another, and the whole mess is nothing but a constant haul of terrible carnage and ruin and wreck. He says it'd be better if it was never existed at all. And that's a very, very interesting idea. And I do believe, and I've seen this in people many times, that in the depths of despair, especially when you've been betrayed, for example, and you wander into the wrong subdivision of the underworld, that's something that comes to mind. If you have a very sick child, for example, or maybe your whole family is suffering, as whole families do sometimes, an idea is going to come to you. It's like, good God, who put this mess together? And is it really worth it? Is it really worth the suffering? Suicidal people, they say no. They say, no, enough of this. And you have to be pushed a long way, generally speaking, before you'll actually commit suicide. You have to be in very, very desperate straits. But your answer under those conditions is that being is such that it would be better if it had never been. And that's I think it's a terrible philosophy, I believe, because I think what happens if you act it out is that you make the very things that led you to despair far worse. And I can't see that if it's reasonable to draw a logical conclusion that suffering justifies your desire to make being end, that the answer to that can't be to produce more suffering. That just doesn't make sense. And my observation has been that people who act out the Mephistophelian philosophy inevitably make suffering far worse. And then that raises the other specter of, well, do they want being just to cease, or are they just out for bloody revenge at any cost? And my conclusion has always been is that the mask is, well, being shouldn't exist because it's too terrible, but the true motivation is I'm going to make everyone suffer as much as I possibly can before I say goodbye to this place. If you read the writings of people like the kids who shot up the Columbine High School, they'll tell you exactly that that's precisely and exactly what they concluded and then acted out. So anyways, but in this, God says that it was good. And I've thought about that a lot. It's like, because the question is something like, well, is something better than nothing? Because that's a really good question, And I thought about two things in relationship to that. And one is, well, maybe it depends on how it is that you are, right? Because it could be that there are ways of being in the world that justify the world. And there are ways of being in the world that make the world unbearable. And I believe that the narrative that runs through the biblical stories is precisely a dialogue between those two types of being. And the optimistic part of the story is that being requires limitation and suffering. There's no escape from that. But there are modes of being that allow that to be perhaps even more than tolerable. Perhaps there are modes of being that allow that to be good. And it's a straight and narrow road. It's a very difficult road to tread. So I think, well, that's possible. I'm not an optimist by nature, but that's one of the things that I've conceptualized and read about that I actually find plausible, because it's certainly the case. Everyone knows this, that there are ways that you can act that make things worse. Everyone knows that. And so if that's the case, there has to be the opposite, right? There has to be ways that you could act that make things better. And obviously you can act in ways that make things really way worse. And so the question is, well, are there ways that you can act that make things really much better? And I think that's the question is, can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we have the being that requires limitation and suffering and also simultaneously transcend that by our mode of being? And I believe that the biblical stories, and perhaps not only the biblical stories, but the biblical stories are one of the human imagination's best attempts to address and answer that question. That's what the entire story is about. So the first of it is the catastrophe of the collapse of self-consciousness and the entrance of humanity into history. And the rest of it is, okay, now we're in history. Now we know that we're going to die. We know about our mortality. We're conscious of our own being. Is there a mode of acting in the world that allows that to be justifiable, or maybe even more, that allows that to be triumphant? And then I would also say, maybe it's worth finding out, That's the other thing that's so interesting, because you've got this short time on Earth, and there's lots of things that are very, very difficult to contend with. And you have the problem of tolerating yourself even in all your insufficiency. And one of the things that seems to me to be the case is that if you adopt a sufficiently profound mode of being, if you attempt to do that, then the mere act of lifting up that weight is enough to justify the fact that you're insufficient and mortal and bound by tragedy. And I believe that, and I believe people believe that, because if you watch how people...
All right, so I was talking about getting a little dark, because we're talking about things that are going to cause you to maybe get suicidal, depressed at the very... maybe anxious at the very best, depressed, next level down. And then after that, it's fucking, and once you get suicidal, it's just like, that's all you get. All your thoughts are about killing yourself and being out of this place. And as of right now, like, our death count in my town since COVID's hit, people are at home, people who didn't have that much money, just scraping by, when they get their check, they do all their drugs and whatever else, and then barely enough to get their kids by, and then for the rest of the month, they're kind of sober, and they pretend like they're going to get help, and then they get their check, and they're fucked up again. Well, then COVID hits, and they get their fucking check, plus they're getting extra money, and now people are overdosing. Because at first it was all great, we got extra money, yeah, we can get extra high, we can do extra things, I get my kids extra stuff too in between, yeah, get another check, and now people are dying. Because you can't just dump money on poor people, and that's a whole other topic. I'm not just going to say that, I don't think our system is completely fair, but I agree with Jordan Peterson when he says that it's not a simple problem to just say, okay, all the poverty in the world, let's just give everybody the money they need for all the things they want and everything go away. It's not the case. If anything, COVID and all this, it's called CERB benefit here, and in Canada anyways, is proving that there's more people overdosing, more people getting in accidents, more people dying. There's actually been a murder in my little shit town, you know what I mean? It's fucked. People are at home gnawing away at themselves because they're fucking bored. They won't want to work, they don't want to work, and then when they're out of work, they get fucking bored, they don't know what to do with themselves. And I'm not saying working 9 to 5 is the solution. I'm saying finding your passion, like fucking Wizard says, is probably the solution. Before you can find your passion, you gotta fix your fucking problems. That's the problem, people don't want to do that. And when it gets into the mode of being, a mode of being that transcends all the pain, is there a way to live that makes, when suffering happens and it's inevitable to happen, is there a way to be that makes it less bad? And not only that, is there a way that, those things are going to be few and far between? And yeah, for me, that comes back to what you focus on expands. What you give energy to grows. So if you're only focusing on your problems, then that's all you're going to have. And the problem is that our divine creator, whoever the fuck it is, whatever you want to say, they love us so much, or they just want us to be happy in whatever situation we have, that we get an endorphin release whenever we either have too much negative emotion or too much positive emotion. And people can literally be addicted to their suicidal, depressive, anxious fucking thoughts. I know people that go around complaining and want people's pity. Now, they don't want people to pity them and give them those looks, but in the same sense, they like when they can say, well, my life's worse than your life. And they'll go around laughing like, well, that's nothing. Look what happened to me. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, holy fuck, do you not realize what you're doing? Like, it's terrible. And that's why the next part I'm going to play is pretty powerful. He gets pretty emotional during it, but he explains through a situation that was pretty terrible that happened, what happened as a result of it. And you got to understand that it's like, okay, well, that's far from a perfect situation. Like, the mother died, and the kids lost a mother, he lost his mother-in-law, and the father lost his wife that he loves, still loves. But it's like, yeah, but that's going to happen. You got to get prepared for that, because that's going to happen. Knowing magic and all this shit's great, and you can get the things you want in life, and you can figure out your path faster. But by doing so, you're also going to get life lessons faster. And the little life lessons that I had, I never thought would happen to me. Like the thing with my wife that happened recently, I never thought that would happen to me. I never thought that would happen to me. But after I look back on it, the things I've done and whatever, it was inevitable for that to happen. I was just kidding my fucking self. And I was in a bad place when that happened. I never thought I would curse anybody. I never thought I'd send anybody a fucking evil thought form, and I did that shit. I used magic in an evil way, I guess, a baneful way, and I never thought I would fucking do something like that. More than that, I understand that what happened to me was a learning curve and it was a test and all that now, but in the moment, there were times where it was, if it wasn't for my daughter's and my stepson's face and my mother's face at my funeral, if it wasn't for that, I don't know. If I was able to get so enraged that I wasn't able to see them so sad that I took my own life, maybe I would have. I was that upset over something as silly as my wife talking to another man because I wasn't helping her anymore and wasn't being around or whatever. And as much as maybe she shouldn't talk to another man and she should have tried harder with me, it doesn't make what I did any more right with her. You gotta grow from these experiences. I'm glad I have my wife. I'm glad I'm with her. I'm glad I'm with somebody who made me realize how great I had it. I was trying so hard to transform my life and transform myself and reach enlightenment and be this powerful magi that I put everybody else on the sidelines and just focused on me solely. And it put me in a dark place, and then I came out of this dark place, and now the trick is to do what I want to do, find out what I want to do for my life, make my life passionate, make my life wonderful and happy at the same time as raising my kids and making sure that they have the tools they need to survive in life, so that they don't grow up and they can't handle things in life, and then whenever something bad happens to them, that they get those feelings that I had. That's one of the most important things to me now. It's more important than my own self-transformations, to making sure that my kids, when they go through their first heartache or their first really bad breakup or their first whatever it is, that they don't get suicidal thoughts to the point where they want to take their own life. That's important. If you have kids and you're focusing on yourself and trying to find your passion, well, you better make sure that you have these fucking angles ironed out as well. Because if you make kids, then you have a responsibility to make sure those kids know what they need to know. I mean, you can't teach them what you don't know. So you have to learn more, and that's one of the things I do. I'm continuously learning more about spirituality, about life, about psychology, about whatever I can. And one of the reasons, and whether it's an excuse to learn more or not, doesn't matter. I want all the tools to be able to teach them the proper things. As I evolve, they evolve. And that's one of those things that you do. If you can better your life, if you can better your life through magic, well, then you're going to better their life in the process. You're going to program them that they can do anything and reach anything, but it's not something you can just fucking make a sigil, put it away, and then boom, your life's perfect. It's never going to be like that. You can manifest things like that. But if you don't have the proper mindset, and that's one of the things he really promotes, that's like an underlying subliminal message, is gratitude. Throughout this whole thing, it's gratitude. Gratitude, being grateful for what you have. Because you really don't know what you have until it's gone. You really don't. You really fucking don't. And that's what takes people out, because when they lose something and they never gave it attention before, thought it was a priority, when they lose it, it knocks them the fuck out. It takes them everything to bounce back, and some people just don't bounce back. And that's how you can make things better. You start fixing your fucking life at the same time as you learn these systems and whatever you're drawn to. And you make finding your purpose, but you don't just sit back and wish for your purpose to fall in your lap while you do nothing to help anybody else. These rich and greedy people everybody talks about, this 1% everybody talks about, do more for the economy, creating jobs, helping fucking poor people, building houses, giving to organizations, and you can even imagine. Yet they are shit on left, right, and center. And what do? They come out and say, hey, all you fucking haters out there, suck a dick. You're fucking worthless pieces of shit that never given a dime. You're like, no, they just take it. They just fucking, they're just swine. They don't know what they're talking about, and they just move on with their life. And they keep getting better things in return. Alyssa Sharp, the Divine Venus, she talked about, because she does birth charts of pop stars. Pop stars have hard lives and they go through hard times. Sometimes they don't make it out. Sometimes their image is fucked after. Sometimes they make it out. Sometimes they don't care. Whatever the case is, but they have hard experiences. Rappers, a lot of guys like listening to rappers that came from drugs and went to jail, and then now they're a star. People like the underdog. You watch a movie, the guy's a nerd like Spider-Man. He gets powers, beats up one bully, but uses his powers for good after that. People like that story. Why? Jesus was sacrificed on the cross, yet he was this perfect man. People love that fucking story because he got sacrificed for everybody. And, it depends on how you look at that. And, I kind of agree with the whole Odin said Jesus was a coward thing by Thunder Wizard. I kind of agree with that because, God tells him he has to sacrifice and he doesn't want to do it. But in another sense, it's like, okay, well, if you trust in the divine, if you believe in the divine, when the divine tells you, Corey, this is going to be awkward, but go do the fucking dishes today. Clean up your fucking room. And you prove that to me, I'll give you something. It's like, no, what's that going to do? What's that going to do? How is me dying on a cross going to help anybody? Just fucking do it. And Jesus died, but then he came back to life and he got to sit in heaven. You know, and that's a metaphor, and that's not actually how it works, but how do we know is when we die, we just come back and we don't have any experiences of that? Yes, people that we leave behind are sad, but that's the point of what Peterson's teaching, is if we don't completely break down and lose ourselves when we have tragedy, then we can slowly start making tragedy less of a big deal, so that these depressions and these anxieties and all these things that come along with all these tragedies, you know, we can deal with them and be a healthier species all at once. We can have solutions to these problems, and we can have an upward spiral instead of this downward spiral. Being addicted to all these negative things that happen to everybody all the time is just not helping anybody. We can make our lives better. We can realize that when we die, we either come back anyways, or we go off to a fucking better place. I mean, everybody says this place is shitty anyways. I mean, it's full of beauty and great things. And if you can take control of your life and manifest whatever you want, whatever you get to that point, well, then that's pretty sick. It's like heaven on earth. Why would you want to die from that? But if you're not at that place, well, then it's pretty horrible. So leaving here is not that big of a deal either. People are sad because their loved ones are gone, but it's like, well, are they sad because they're gone, or are they jealous because they're not fucking, they're still stuck here? And I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but the point I'm trying to get at is you know, it's we don't know what happens when we move on. We really don't. And we can be sad about the people we lose, or we can realize that it's a part of life and prepare ourselves mentally for that. And instead of putting it off, like you put off a fight, you put off this hard conversation with your partner, you put all these things off, but when they happen, they're brutal. If you don't put it off, you deal with it a little bit at a time, then it's not so brutal. I mean, you can even correlate that to COVID. It's like, well, if we give ourselves a little bit of COVID and we build up the antibodies, unless we know we have a weak immune system, then we can't do that, those people, until we either fix our immune system or realize that, no, we have to be in a bubble for the rest of our life. You know, we have to find the solutions. We can't just hide from things. And what are people walking around with a mask on? They're hiding from this virus that can't die. Look up the scientific info on this. They say COVID could be on the ground just chilling there forever. Snow can freeze over it, and then when it unthaws, COVID's back. We can't get rid of it. People can beat it. If everybody got infected with it, then everybody who's not strong enough would die, and the rest of us would beat it. And technically, then it could be gone, because then it's only the strong people left. And that's a mean thing to say, because it's like, well, how is that fair to the people that were born weaker? Fair enough. It's not fucking fair. But it's something we're dealing with. And how is making everybody weaker fair? None of these circumstances are easy. None of these solutions are easy. And that's why we shouldn't be doing one solution that just makes everybody weak and have the same problem and potentially kill off the species be our solution. That makes no sense. It's like telling everybody that if you lose a loved one, then go kill yourself. I mean, well, not that extreme, but you know what I'm saying. But anyways, there's so much to unpack from these Peterson things. It's why you can listen to them over and over again and get so much knowledge from them. And he's an outstanding man, and I'm so happy he's back. He got a standing ovation after his last one, and he well deserves it, because he's been through some pretty shitty shit. His wife was sick. He had an addiction to benzodiazepine, benzos, which is what, you know, I took a half a Xan, 13 hours on land, Xanax. That's a benzodiazepine. I mean, if you watch the show Cops, like 10 years ago, every third fucking thing they shown, it was someone driving all fucked up, and the cop would be like, "Oh, what'd you take?" Like, "Oh, I took a Xan. I never knew what that was, but that's what it was. It's been popular, and it's even more popular now. So you got hooked on that, and you can judge them for that if you want, but dealing with your tragedy rather than just offing yourself and making other people deal with it, I think is a little bit better. It's not a great solution. It's definitely a terrible short-term solution, but it's one that we can deal with. It's the reason why the liquor stores and the beer stores don't close in their essential services, because people are highly addicted to that, coping with the tragedy of life. And if we close those down, well, things would get fucked up pretty fucking fast. Even the governments of the world understand that. Life isn't fucking easy. but there are ways you can do and deal with it and make it better. If everybody just died of old age, it'd be a perfect world, but that's not our perfect world. People are given tests, life tests, and they don't know their test. They think God just has this random way with us. It's like, no. There are ways out of these things. There's things you have to learn by these things. And I'm not going to speak on any specifics because I don't know how it feels to have a sick child or whatever the case is. And I never will, because if my child was sick, I would do everything in my power, and maybe that wouldn't be enough, and maybe that would take me out. So I can't talk about something like that because, you know, I don't know. I'm not in that situation. But those things obviously happen for some fucked up reason. And we can dwell on it and let it take us out and fuck up the rest of our lives and make our relationships fucked up with our family, or we can find a way to get past it and move on. And just as many people that have killed, I think there's more people that actually cope with it than there is that kill themselves over it. So there's hope here. Like he says, if we can do things that make the world worse, then we can definitely do things that make the world better. And the worst way is easier because it requires anger and laziness and no discipline and no knowledge. But the things that make us better are for the strong, or for the powerful, or for the ones that are built for this stuff. And we got to lead by example. And I say we because I believe I'm one of those people. Not completely, not yet, but I'm going to be one of those people. And I'm fucking unfortunately going to have tests that are going to come my way. And I'm going to have to fucking prove that. And it is what it is. You got to get on board with the fact that you're going to lose everybody that's in your life. And if you don't lose the people in your life, it's because you end up getting something that's going to take you out. And maybe it doesn't have to be that way, but we're not at the place in our evolution yet that has brought us to where we can just live forever and not have to reincarnate. And why should we be? When there's suffering in the world, when there's people in poverty, when there's addiction, when there's people killing other people, you know, when there's fucking racism and all these other things, there's no reason for us to be able to live forever when we are not treating everybody with equal loving and respect. And that's the way it should be. We should realize that tragedy happens and it's no one's fucking fault. And maybe some people do cause the tragedy in their life. If what you focus on expands, then why the fuck are you focusing on things that are not going to do any fucking good for you? Why are you focusing on things that are going to make your life miserable? If you know this and you're doing it still, it's because you're weak, it's because you're undisciplined, and it's because you're fucking lazy. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow, and I was there. And there's days where I'm still there. And there's certain things I do in my life that are very much still there. But I'm trying. I'm always trying to better myself. And everybody needs to always try to better themselves. And if you're just going to blame circumstance for everything bad that happened to you, well, I don't know your circumstances, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to help anybody. No, you, not anybody.
And to stand up straight and face the darkness like fully. What you discover at the darkest part is the brightest light. And that's something that's so much worth discovering, because there's going to be terrible darkness in your life, and it's going to make you cynical and bitter, and it could easily be that you're just not looking at it enough, because if you looked at it enough and you didn't shy away and you brought everything you had to bear on it, you'd find that there was more to you than there was to the horror. You know, I watched my father-in-law. I'll end with this. And you know, you don't know, because you're not bringing your A game to the table with all that cynicism and bitterness and resentment and willful blindness and avoidance. Maybe you're playing at 60%. It's not good enough, because there's too much of what's bad for 60% to be good enough. It's like you need 90% or 95% or 100%. When about 15, 20 years ago, my mother-in-law developed frontal temporal dementia, which I wouldn't recommend. You know, it's one of those degenerative neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, and those bloody things are like they're in the top echelon of awful. You know, you watch a person deteriorate before your eyes. It's a lengthy death. And it was slow. And her husband, he lived in this little town that I grew up in, about 3,000 people, and he was quite a character, man. Everybody knew him. I bought him a Foghorn Leghorn t-shirt once, because that's kind of what he was like. He was loud and sort of bombastic, but he stood up straight, I can tell you. And he played the fool a little bit, mostly for the amusement of people, but he was no damn fool. And I always admired him and liked him, and the feeling was mutual, thank God, since I married his daughter. And, you know, he drank a lot with his crazy friends up in northern Alberta, and he wasn't at home a lot because he was working a lot. And you know, he was kind of a party animal about town, but a good businessman and a good man. And then his wife got sick, and they moved to another town. And, you know, he took care of her for like 15 years. It was unbelievable as she deteriorated, you know, and she got more desperate to have him around, and her love for him never went away. Even as she lost herself almost completely, she would always light up when he came into the room, you know, and he took care of her right till within weeks of her death. He had to finally put her in an old folks home because he was no longer strong enough to lift her up from the chair. And we interacted with him a lot, you know, because we were trying to help him figure out how to cope. And we had signs put up in the house, electronic signs that would tell her when he was leaving, so that she would know where he went. And we had recordings in the bathroom so that she knew what to do when she went into the bathroom. And we tried to do everything we could to not make this absolutely bloody, atrocious experience complete hell. And he participated the whole way, you know, and it was really something to see. It was really left me with a tremendous sense of admiration for him, but not just for him, but for people who can do that, you know. And if there was a new decline, he took it on, and he didn't complain about it. He tried to do what he could, you know, and like, it was no picnic, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't hell. And then we were all gathered around the deathbed, my wife's mother's deathbed, and the family was there, and they got along pretty well, you know. And her sister's a palliative care nurse, and the other one's a pharmacist, and none of them are particularly afraid of illness and death. You know, they're a pretty tough group. And so, you know, they made sure their mother's lips were wet while she was no longer eating or drinking, and tried to make her comfortable. And they were around the deathbed, and they were kind of getting along, you know. It wasn't family feud at mother's death time, and that was kind of nice. And she died, and that was that. But it wasn't just that, because the fact that the family had coped with it well and nobly and honorably, I would say, brought them together. They were closer afterwards than they were before, and they all had more respect for their father. And then in the old folks' home, he met another woman who had a husband there who had Alzheimer's, and they got to know each other, you know. And he died after a while, and she died after a while, and then a few months later they started going out, and then eventually they had a relationship, and now they live together. And so he gained something. Like, it wasn't that he replaced what he lost, you know what I mean? Because he still has pictures of his wife up in his house, and she was the love of his life, and that's not going away. But, you know, his family respected him more, and everybody pulled together more, and it wasn't hell at the deathbed, it was just tragedy, and the family pulled together more. And that was a good example of how you can extract at least a certain amount of light out of what's dark, even at a personal level. And it's worth asking yourself. It's like, drop what you're doing that's foolish, that you know is foolish, and pick an aim that's worthwhile, you know, to make things better for yourself, like you're worth taking care of, like you're worth something, you know, and to surround yourself with people who believe the same, and who are rejoicing in your accomplishments and unhappy when you fail, right? And you're comparing yourself to your accomplishments of yesterday and not to someone else's today, so that you're not jealous and bitter. And you put your own house in order so that you're not cursing the world when some of its disarray might be your fault. And you're trying to pursue something meaningful, and you're doing your best to tell the truth and all of that. And then you see what happens. Who the hell are you? You know, you think you're a miracle of some bloody bizarre sort. We've been around for 3.5 billion years. Every single one of your relatives propagated successfully, and here you are against all possible odds in this world of hell in some sense, and bitterness and tyranny and malevolence, and yet God only knows what's inside you, this capacity for consciousness, the capacity to confront potential and to turn it into something good. That's us, man. That's the Western story. That's the individual as the cornerstone of the state. That's our responsibility, and it really is who we are. And so we need to know that, and we need to remember it, and we need to act it out. And then maybe we can see what we can do about it, and see how good we could make things. And maybe that would be the purpose of your damn life, right? Not to be happy. It's like there's problems to be solved. Be happy after you solve the goddamn things, right? So I learned, because I looked at dark things, that I learned that the light was more powerful than the darkness as far as I was concerned, and that people were capable, each of us, of remarkable things, and that we need to know that that's what we are. We're this consciousness that confronts potential with all its catastrophe. That's what we are. That's what makes us in the image of God. That's what gives us our intrinsic value. And that idea that we have intrinsic value, that's the bedrock presupposition of our state. We're going to question that, or we're going to live it out. Better to live it out and find out who you are. Thank you very much.
That was one fucking deserved fucking standing ovation. My man Peterson. Oh, I love him. I can't put it any other fucking way. He really is another version of somebody trying to make the world a better fucking place. And by doing it, he's a professor at Harvard. He teaches psychology. He's been doing this shit. He learned this shit, and now he's teaching what he knows. It's one of the reasons I watch him, because like I said, if you want to be something, then see the people that are doing something similar to what you want to do, and you fucking consume them. Learn how they do it. Put it in your 10,000 hours. Practice. Do it. Watch it. Take it in. Stay on task. He preaches action in a different way that Thunder Wizard does, but he still preaches action. And him and Thunder Wizard probably wouldn't see eye to eye because of the whole Bible fucking thing, but they preach something similar. And it's taking action. Look, I'm wearing a red shirt. Mayor's action. But seriously, there's something in this that people need to hear. Is the reason why there was 5,000 or 6,000 people there, 3,000 at his other events. People are buying tickets to see this guy like he's a fucking musician. You know what I mean? I think his biblical stories are like 6.3 million fucking views. People that don't like him go there, buy a ticket just so they can ask a question, and he just shuts them down. It is what it is. Sometimes you need something to push up against to learn it. But he gets into the magic here a little bit too. Like, we're consciousness that takes potential and turns it into what we want if we do it correctly. Or we can take the potential of harm or success or failure or, finding our passion out of that failure. Or we can just take the failure and just say, fuck it, it's not worth it. And we have that choice. We can do that, and we can let tragedy stop us, or we can take the tragedy and say, it's a part of life, and I'm just going to keep doing me anyways, because I know this tragedy is inevitable, but I'm not going to let me take me out. And you got to realize that everybody has tragedy. These fucking successful people have had tragedy. These stars have had tragedy. Everybody's had tragedy. And depending on what they've been through, You know, if someone, God forbid, has lost a child in their life, well, then losing a job is probably not as bad. But if you've never lost a job and you've been working so hard and you had this plan, well, then losing a job is going to seem pretty hard. If you define yourself by this job, it's going to be hard. That hits men pretty hard. Probably women too, but I'm just saying, I know a lot of men that get taken out if they worked at a place at 25, 30 years, 5 years maybe away from their fucking retirement plan, and then they get taken out and they gotta restart somewhere. They're done. It's hard for them because they define themselves by that. But you can look at that as, all right, well, maybe I didn't like this job that much, but, you know, I was looking forward to just finishing out the next 5 years, or maybe this happened for a fucking reason. Maybe I need to find that fucking reason. Because maybe I didn't want to waste the next 5 years there. Maybe that next 5 years, something bad would have happened. And now I have the chance to get rid of some of this built up resentment, emotional bullshit in my body, get it out so it doesn't develop a disease in the next 5 years. And I can be healthy for my actual retirement. You know, who knows why things happen. But we don't get to see the big picture. We get to see the small picture. And now, with the internet and all the old traditions and the subconscious and the unconscious and all we know, we can put suggestions into our subconscious to make things play out in our life. And if you want that to happen, all you have to do is consume people that teach you how to do that and then take the action to do it. And it will happen. It's so fucking simple that people won't even fucking do it. And I'm telling you, you probably watching me right now won't even do it. And I'm doing that so that you do it, by the way. Reverse psychology and telling a kid not to do something is the best way to get them to do something. So I'm trying to motivate you that way. I'm not trying to be insulting. I want you to prove me wrong. But that fucking guy, fuck him, I'm going to do it. Best thing you can do, you know. And if you don't listen to me, well, then you just prove me right. But, you know, and it took me a fucking while to start doing these things. My wife's even coming around and starting to do these things, you know. It's amazing. But it's not going to stop us from eventually parting from one another. It's not going to stop us from having to deal with, you know, people we love passing on or having hard times in our life that we have to strive through. You know, maybe we put off our debt too long and then it comes to bite us in the ass. You know, that's why we're both actively working on our budget together and seeing where we can stop spending so much and put that money away for later on, for when issues happen, because they're inevitable. And if you plan for them, they're less likely to happen. If you pretend they won't happen, and I know I preach that sometimes. I say, well, if you don't give something attention, then it's less likely to happen, which is true. But there's also another law that, you know, if you don't, like I said with the fucking TV, we never bought insurance. Never bought insurance. We always bought insurance for our TV, never had to use it. So then we're like, fuck it, we never had to use insurance, why would we buy it now? And then right before we had to start paying Leon's for our TV, because it was like, wait 18 months to pay. Yeah, now we're paying for a TV we don't even fucking have. So there's, you know, it's one of those things. You've got to find that fine line, that middle ground. But anyways, this is a pretty long video, but I mean, what he just said speaks for itself. You know, that's a hard thing to go through. It's a terrible thing to go through. And you can go through it, make it fucking worse. Or you can make it not so fucking bad. And if you make it not so fucking bad, then good things will come out of it. But if you make it terrible, then worse things come out of it. And that's not, shouldn't even be optional. It should be something that it's the furthest thing from your fucking mind. You know, you shouldn't be like, oh, fuck this bitch. She's going to get more money when mom passes on. I'm going to fucking tell her where to go. Or, oh, she wants to control the fucking, you know, the fucking things that happen at the funeral. Fuck this bitch. No, it's like, how's that going to help? Is that what your mother would have wanted? You know, like, anyways, let's get into some of the magic stuff, shall we? And I think the next one I play is probably going to be the last one. And the podcast will be longer because I got 3 hours, but, you know, attention spans of people aren't that long. But one of these days, when people And certain people find my stuff that need it, and they like watching long things like documentary style or whatever. That's when my channel will take off. But until then, it's just a way for me to fucking get smarter and work shit out. But practice, baby. Gotta put in 10,000 hours to become fucking, an expert at your fucking craft. So by making big videos, well, it's more hours for me, baby.
With this, it's associated, that's the idea there, is that there's something about the logos that is necessary for the absolute chaos of the reality beyond experience to manifest itself as reality. It's an amazing idea because it gives consciousness a constitutive role in the cosmos. And you can debate that, but it's not, you can't just bloody well brush it off. Because first of all, we are the most complicated things there are that we know of by a massive amount. We're so complicated that it's unbelievable. And so, there's a lot of cosmos out there, but there's a lot of cosmos in here too. And which one is greater is by no means obvious unless you use something trivial like relative size, which, really isn't a very sophisticated approach. And whatever it is that is you has this capacity to experience reality and to transform it, which is a very strange thing. You can conceptualize a future in your imagination, and then you can work and make that manifest. You participate in the process of creation. That's one way of thinking about it. And so that's why I think in Genesis 1, it relates the idea that human beings are made in the image of the divine, men and women, which is interesting too, because, the feminists are always criticizing Christianity, for example, as being, inexorably patriarchal. Of course, they criticize everything like that, so it's hardly a stroke of bloody brilliance. But I think it's an absolute miracle that right at the beginning of the document, it says straightforwardly, like with no hesitation whatsoever, that the divine spark, which we're associating with the word that brings forth being, is manifest in men and women equally. That's a very cool thing. And you got to think, well, like I said, you actually take that seriously. Well, what you got to ask is, what happens if you don't take it seriously? Right? That's read Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. That's the best investigation of that tactic that's ever been produced. Because what happens in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment is that the main character, whose name is Raskolnikov, decides that there's no intrinsic value to other people. And that as a consequence, he can do whatever he wants. It's only cowardice that stops him from acting, right? Because why would it be anything else if the value of other people is just an arbitrary superstition? Then why can't I do exactly what I want when I want? Which is the psychopath's viewpoint. Well, so Raskolnikov does. He kills someone who's a very horrible person, and he has very good reasons for killing her. And he's half-starved and a little bit insane and possessed by this ideology. It's brilliant layout. And he finds out something after he kills her, which is that the post-killing Raskolnikov and the pre-killing Raskolnikov are not the same person, even a little bit. Because he's broken a rule, like he's broken a serious rule, and there's no going back. And Crime and Punishment is the best investigation I know of what happens if you take the notion that there's nothing divine about the individual seriously. Now, most of the people I know who are deeply atheistic, and I understand why they're deeply atheistic, they haven't contended with people like Dostoevsky, not as far as I can tell. Because I don't see logical flaws in Crime and Punishment. I think he got the psychology exactly right. And Dostoevsky's amazing for this because in one of his books, The Devils, for example, he describes a political scenario that's not much different than the one we find ourselves in now. And there are these people who are possessed by rationalistic, utopian, atheistic ideas. And they're very powerful. They give rise to the communist revolution, right? I mean, they're powerful ideas. And his character, Stavrogan, also acts out the presupposition that human beings have no intrinsic nature and no intrinsic value. And it's another brilliant investigation, and Dostoevsky prophesies, that's what I would say, what will happen to a society if it goes down that road? And he was dead exactly accurate. It's uncanny to read Dostoevsky's The Possessed or The Devils, depending on the translation, and then to read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, because one is fiction and prophecy, and the second is, hey, look, it turned out exactly the way that Dostoevsky said it would for exactly the same reasons. So it's quite remarkable. So the question is, do you contend seriously with the idea that A, there's something cosmically constitutive about consciousness, and B, that might well be considered divine, and C, that is instantiated in every person? And then ask yourself, if you're not a criminal, if you don't act it out. And then ask yourself what that means. Is that reflective of a reality? Is it a metaphor? Like maybe it's a metaphor, a complex metaphor that we have to use to organize our societies. Could well be, but even as a metaphor, it's true enough so that we mess with it at our peril. And it also took people a very long time to figure out. This is Genesis 1. And I'm probably going to stop there because I believe it's 9:30. And so we didn't even get to the first line. Things that we'll use as a prodroma for the next lecture, because I'll just bounce through a collection of ideas that's associated with the notion of divinity, okay? And then we'll turn back to the first lines when we start the next lecture. I have no idea how far I'm going to get through the biblical stories, by the way, because I'm trying to figure this out as I go along. Okay, so, there's an idea in Christianity that the image of God is a trinity, right? There's the Father, there's the element of the Father, there's the element of the Son, and there's the element of the Holy Spirit. And it's something like tradition, the spirit of tradition. It's something like the human being as the newest incarnation of that tradition, like the living incarnation of that tradition. And then it's something like the spirit in people that makes relationship with this and this possible, the spirit in individuals. And so I'm going to bounce my way quickly through some of the classical metaphorical attributes of God so that we kind of have a cloud of notions about what we're talking about when we return to Genesis 1 and talk about the God who spoke chaos into being. So there's a fatherly aspect. So here's what God as a father is like. You can enter into a covenant with it, so you can make a bargain with it. Now you think about that, money is like that, because money is a bargain you make with the future. Right? So we structured our world so that you can negotiate with the future. And I don't think that we would have got to the point where we could do that without having this idea to begin with. You can act as if the future is a reality. There's a spirit of tradition that enables you to act as if the future is something that can be bargained with. That's why you make sacrifices, right? And the sacrifices were acted out for a very long period of time, and now they're psychological. We know that you can sacrifice something valuable in the present and expect that you're negotiating with something that represents the transcendent future. And that's an amazing human discovery, like no other. Mother-in-law developed frontal temporal dementia, which I wouldn't recommend. It's one of those degenerative neurological diseases like Alzheimer's and those bloody things. Whose God is going to take priority? Which ideal is going to take priority? And what seems to happen is that's represented in mythology as a battle of the gods in sort of celestial space, but from a practical perspective, it's more like an ongoing dialogue. You believe this, I believe this. You believe that, I believe this. How are we going to meld that together? So you take God A and you take God B, and maybe what you do is extract God C from them, and you say, well, God C now has the attributes of A and B, and then some other tribes come in, and then C takes them over too, and so you get, like with Marduk, for example, he has a multitude of names, 50 different names. Well, those are names, at least in part, of the subordinate gods that represented the tribes that came together to make the civilization. That's part of the process by which that abstracted ideal is abstracted. You think this is important and it works because your tribe's alive, and you think this is important and it works because your tribe is alive. And so we'll take the best of both if we can manage it and extract out something that's even more abstract that covers both of us if we can do it. And one of the things that's really interesting about Marduk, I'll just give you a couple of his features, but he has eyes all the way around his head. He's elected by all the other gods to be king god, so that's the first thing. That's quite cool. And they elect him because they're facing a terrible threat, sort of like a flood and a monster combined, something like that. And Marduk basically says that if they elect him top god, then he'll go out and stop the flood monster and they won't all get wiped out. It's a serious threat. It's chaos itself making its comeback. And so all the gods agree. And Marduk is a new manifestation. He's got eyes all the way around his head and he speaks magic words. And then he also goes out and when he fights this deity called Tiamat. And we need to know that because the word Tiamat is associated with the word Tehom, Tehom, and Tehom is the chaos that God makes order out of at the beginning of time in Genesis. So it's linked very tightly to this story. And Marduk, with his eyes and his capacity to speak magic words, goes out to confront Tiamat, who's like a watery sea dragon, something like that. It's a classic St. George story to go out and wreak havoc on the dragon. And he cuts her into pieces, and he makes the world out of her pieces. And that's the world that human beings live in. And the Mesopotamian emperor acted out Marduk. He was allowed to be emperor insofar as he was a good Marduk. And so that meant that he had eyes all the way around his head, and he could speak magic. He could speak properly.